Your first time here at Rolex, put forth a fantastic test. Tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you. I'm really excited. For where I am right now, I couldn't have gone any better. I didn't think I would do that well my first time at Rolex, so I'm really excited. The horse went great, and I think we did the best we could.
All right, well, you earned yourselves a 53, and that will definitely keep you in the thick of things going into tomorrow. But, Boyd, you've been working with Caitlin for a really long time now. Tell us a little bit about the process of developing a rider to this point and having her sitting next to you on the interview couch, and just kind of how far you guys have come together.
It's been, there's literally been... I don't know how many people have come to work for us, and a lot of them last for a week, some of them last for a month, and some of them last for a year, and Caitlin's lasted, how long? 5 years, and, I take my hat off to her because I think she made a commitment when she was young, like at 17 years old, and said, this is what I want to do, and she's worked very, very, very hard, and she's missed a lot of things that kids her age enjoy, be it a holiday or a frat party at a college thing, or, and she's also been through some very, very disappointing times with injuries and horse injuries and and she sort of hung in there, and I think it's... I think it's wonderful that she's at an event at this level, and I have some sense of satisfaction knowing that I've sort of contributed a little bit to it as well. But at the end of the day, it's probably more Caitlin being Caitlin than us having some magic wand making her this.
Caitlin, a few years ago, did you think that at 23 years of age here you'd be at Rolex, you'd be kind of amongst all the big guys, making your 4-star debut at such a young age is a huge accomplishment. Years ago, did you kind of see that in your near future?
I didn't think so. Even I came here in 2010 to watch Boyd ride at the WEGs, and if you had asked me then if I thought I'd be here in 2013, I probably would have said no. So it's pretty exciting.
And just tell us a little bit about the interesting and phenomenal relationship you have with this mare, Catch a Star.
I haven't had her for that long. I got her in the summer of 2010. Boyd and I sort of picked her out. And then it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride with her. I did a 2-star on her in the spring of 2011, and then the fire at True Prospect happened, so we missed out on the fall of 2011. Got going again in 2012 and started our advanced season, did a 3-star at Bromont last summer. And then I had a bit of an injury last fall, so again we missed out on the fall, and now here we are.
Well, Boyd, you have a very noticeable accent. For all those who don't know Boyd Martin, there aren't many of you that are probably standing out here, but Boyd is not an American. Naturally, he is now, from Australia. And so why did you decide to make the move to the U.S.? And did you just wake up one day and thought, U.S. sounds good, let's do it? Or...
No, I mean, I probably had much the same start in life as Caitlin. I finished school pretty unsuccessfully and became a working student for a fella named Heath Ryan in Australia. And like Caitlin, I sort of started eventing from a young age and went hard at it. And I actually rode in a number of 4-stars before I even ventured over this way. So I'd sort of got to a point in Australia where I was getting a little bit, not bored, but sort of done everything there was to do. And so in 2006, I came over here with a horse called Yin Yang Yo, and I looked around, and I got a job. I was sort of based at Phillips preparing for this event, and then I really, really loved it. I went to a couple of horse trials and thought, well, and it was a tough decision because you basically have got all your support structure and your horses in Australia and your friends and family, and I was sort of riding at the top level there, and so it was a pretty big call just to leave all that and start over basically, and got a job as working at Phillips, and then did that for a couple of years, and then moved on doing my own thing.
Well, you did really well incredibly quickly, obviously being a member of that 2012 Olympic team and all of your other success over here in the U.S. Your wife, Silva, is incredibly accomplished as well herself. So was it your idea to come here, or did she kind of play a pivotal role in that, or who kind of said?
No, I mean she's German, so she moved to Australia, and the dressage scene in Australia is a bit like the eventing scene in Australia, where there's some very, very good horses, very great riders, but it's a little bit I don't want to say primitive, but you're just so far away from everything. So I think she was also ready to try dressage in the United States, just thinking it might be a little bit closer to the excitement of big competition. So it was sort of a fun thing to do with a partner. It probably would have been harder just to do by yourself.
Well, we often see Silva ringside giving Boyd tips of advice, and Caitlin, you as well. How influential is she in your guys' riding, and how much does it help maybe having a person who's so accomplished in dressage that you're comfortable with on a daily basis?
She's extremely influential in our riding. I can't thank her enough for everything she's done for us leading up to this event, and all the time. She's at the farm all the time. If we're at a show and can't ride our good horses, she's able to work them on the flat while we're away. She teaches us day in and day out, and really spends hours and hours of time with us, so we're really spoiled by her.
Well, a little bit about your background, maybe, Caitlin. What kind of family did you come from? Was it one that was a horsey family, or maybe not so much?
My mom rode as a kid, not competitively, but she sort of rode for fun, so I definitely got the horse bug from her. And I come from a family of 4 kids, and the 3 others don't ride. They like the horses, but they didn't pick up the riding. It was just me.
And Boyd, maybe some other people who were influential in your career early on, and obviously you're very instrumental in Caitlin's success so far, so some people who made a difference for you.
I was pretty lucky. I was from a sporting family. Both my mum and dad were quite sporty. They were Winter Olympians, so that was a huge help in my upbringing, because there was definitely encouragement to lead towards professional sports when you were growing up, where I think other kids that the father's an accountant and the mother's a lawyer, it's a bit harder to try and convince them that you're going to do horses for full time. So I was a little bit ahead there, and I came across a guy in Australia when I was young called Heath Ryan that was borderline crazy, and but a very, very enthusiastic person that I was drawn to when I was 17 years old, and he was a workhorse, a very talented rider and a great horseman, and I moved into the bunkhouse at his farm with 13 other 17-year-olds, and it was very, very hard work, and but I really, really loved it. I couldn't sort of sit still and do a job where you have to concentrate on a computer screen or whatever. So, and he was a great guy. And then obviously when I got to America and connected with Philip Dutton, that was a huge turning point as well. And obviously with the dressage, like Caitlin, I'm very, very fortunate to be around a person that's a specialist day in, day out.
All right, and the horse you have here this year, tell us a little bit about that horse. It says Rolex debut. You've been here successfully many times, but tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good horse. He's an Irish bred horse. He started out as a fox hunter in Ireland, and then he was imported to America, where he was produced. And I spotted him a bit over 12 months ago and really kept my eye on him, and I thought he was a tremendous athlete, a great jumper, a good mover, and a great mind. And I was lucky enough to rally up a group of 10 people to purchase the horse. So I don't know him very well because I've only been riding him for a year, and he is young. Like, I think he's the youngest horse in the field. He's only 9, and at this level that's a big call. But he's a magnificent horse, and I think in the future he's going to be as good as I've ever ridden. So,
on that course out there, any particular complexes that you think might challenge him more than others?
I mean, I think he'll be green all the way around, but I'm very, very confident in his ability. He's a class jumper. He's got a big stride, and I've got him very, very fit. So I think every single jump will present some sort of challenge to us. And but deep down, I know he's up for it. I sort of got the feeling over all the years of which ones are going to cope well, and I think he's one of them. And I think he'll be, a little bit inexperienced in the dressage, and I think he'll show jump pretty well. So, I'm using this as thinking of the hopefully 4 stars ahead in time. This is his first go at it, and I think he'll still could finish up near the leaders. So we'll see what happens.
And how do you think that the first time someone does a 4-star, obviously it's a huge changing point in their careers, but for all the horses you've ridden or the riders that you've worked with or yourself even, how are they different after a 4-star? I mean, no matter how it goes educationally.
I mean, I think it's just a huge experience, and there's no, you can't really, Caitlin will be fine. She'll be, I actually think she'll jump around quite easily. She's probably petrified right now and can't sleep at night, but, she's done it the right way, like she's trained hard, she's got a good horse, and she's done it properly, and I think when you go through that sort of scenario, then usually the outcome's pretty rewarding. For me, when I did my first 4-star, I was 19 years old and was probably naive to what I was actually going through. So I was probably just didn't quite get it, and then but I got through it somehow. And then year after year after year, you get the hang of how to train for it and what horses need what ride and the dressage, and it's a wise man's game, and you'll notice that a lot of the top 10 riders here will be well over their age of 40, which isn't a coincidence. It's just it takes so long to get the hang of producing a great performance at this level.
And Caitlin, for you, it's your first time you have seen the track, I presume?
I have.
And just coming to Rolex is such an experience as a spectator, let alone being a rider, but you probably don't get as much time. We were talking to Lynn Smansky and Aaron Sylvester this morning, and they said, well, the trade fair is so fantastic, but when you're riding, you're really over in the barns and you don't make it out here very often. So just the whole experience and coming here and kind of the things you were most excited about and things maybe that have surprised you in the process, even putting your entry in. A Rolex entry is $100. Most people may not know that.
Which is, I think, if you enter a novice event at the local horse trial, it's nearly $300, yeah. Which is crazy. But it's a different experience. I sort of all got real yesterday when you jogged down the jog strip, and I think there were about 100 photographers at the end of the jog lane, and I've never seen that before, and I've certainly been here, but you don't realize how much atmosphere there is, and it's cool because there are so many sponsors here, and it feels like more of a European event because the community is really involved, and there's so many volunteers, and the event it makes you feel like it's a really big event.
And the cross country itself, Derek DeGrazier puts forth a tough track here. Just the whole environment, what are you excited for? Are you worried about the gallop lanes, things that kind of are exciting or scary?
I'm excited. I think it'll go well. It's a big course. It's what a 4-star course should be. I think Boyd has me prepared. I think my horse is fit enough, so we'll just see how it goes. I'll do the best I can out there.
And then speaking of fitness for either of you, actually, everybody kind of has a different stance on their approach to getting a horse ready for a 4-star event and what they do fitness-wise and maybe what they don't do or what they do the last week. What stance do you guys take, and what do you use to get these horses fit?
I mean, I think the key is to try and get them fit over 4 or 5 months, not trying to cram it all into 1 or 2 months. So, and like for these two horses, I think it's both their first 4-star. So I think this time next year, if we were aiming for this event, you'd benefit from the fitness that you did this year. So it'll be easier next year. But we start off 4 or 5 months before the event and do a lot of long, slow stuff, and then as time goes on, you build up to sharper, faster stuff. So I think Caitlin's horse looks like a whippet at the moment, and I think it's a real sort of hot-looking horse, even though it's half warm blood. I think it reminds you of a bit of a greyhound, so I think that one would be plenty fit enough. And my guy is still a bit young and immature in his body, so I think he'll definitely have his tongue hanging out right at the end. But I feel like I've put in the miles and trained hard and couldn't have done much more fitness work. So we'll if it doesn't work out, it's not like I made a mistake, I think, in preparing him.
And do you guys do more sprints or long distances or hill gallops? What do you focus
We're lucky.
on?
We're in Pennsylvania, so there's some of the best hills in America to gallop up, and that's why a lot of the steeplechase trainers and the timber racing trainers and the flat trainers are there. And so we really, really, really benefit from the long hills there. And we've also got a swimming pool for horses not far. And I actually swum my horse a fair bit as well, just to try and put some extra condition on him, and you know, I think one of the things.
Squeeze a few faster seconds out.
Yeah. So it's when you do these a lot, you understand how important, or you know, you don't really get an understanding of how tired a horse gets at 8, 9, 10, 11 minutes until you actually do it, and you're like, oh dear, you know. And so I definitely have experienced a horse that's not quite fit enough, so it's something that I take very, very seriously.
And then from a rider fitness standpoint, we had a Twitter follower at home actually tweet in to ask these guys what they do to get fit themselves, or if there are any stretching things they do prior to getting on. Boyd, I know you do a lot of yoga.
Yeah. I mean, Caitlin used to be quite overweight when she started for me, and she's definitely trimmed up, and I think I'd probably take my...
Do they feed you?
No.
But you know, probably my weight would bounce around 18 to 20 pounds from heaviest to lightest. But I've been a bit lame this year because I've had a couple of falls, so I haven't actually been able to physically do much fitness work. But I think it's important, if you consider how long and how far we've got to gallop, to try and lighten up a little bit. And yeah.
Do you do any kinds of workouts or anything to supplement your riding, or is it mostly just riding that gets you in shape?
Mostly just riding. Boyd keeps me pretty busy during the day, so by the end of the day, I would like to run, but I'm not the best runner. I sort of go in and out of jogging and stuff. But I think the biggest thing is, like Boyd said, is making sure you keep your weight down and eating healthy and being very conscious of your eating habits.
And how did you stick with Boyd for 5 years? I mean, Boyd says, you know, you're heavy set when you got there. Nobody sticks around for him. You have to train all day long and work. Do you get to sleep?
I don't know if you guys know Boyd, but he likes to exaggerate a little bit. I love it. I think it might work the other way. They can't get rid of me. I'm stuck there. But I am very committed to them, and they've done so much for me, Boyd and Silva, and I hope to be with them for a lot longer.
Well, William Fox Pitt told James Alliston his first time here at Rolex that he should just go out on cross country and treat it like a 3-star and ride it just the same, because he got here doing 3-stars successfully. Are there any kind of big words of wisdom that you've gotten from people?
I think it's very similar to that. I'm going to go with that. I think I'll make a plan with Boyd and use his wisdom, and he'll tell me how to ride all the different questions out there. And I think if I stick to our plan, we both know my horse pretty well, and you got to think the whole way around and stick to your plan.
And then just cross-country morning, everybody kind of has a different ritual. Lynn Szymanski, for those of you who didn't hear earlier, she takes a nap before cross-country. She sleeps for a while, she said. And everyone's a little bit different. I think she probably wouldn't have much company in the fact that she's sleeping right before she gets on to go tackle an 11 and some minute cross-country course. But are there things that you guys do before you get on, or mentally, to prepare yourselves for any of the phases?
I think Caitlin goes first thing in the morning, so we'll probably walk the course early, and then I'll help her warm up, and then I'd probably spend a bit of time watching the closed circuit TV and figure out the fences that we were worried about and how they're riding. And sometimes some of the ones you're worried about ride really well, and some of the ones that you weren't worried about are just a mess, and then you've sort of got to maybe change your plan. If the horses go really late in the afternoon, I'd often give them a ride in the morning. But usually it's a hard thing for a guy like me that's usually occupied by riding 5 or 6, 7 horses at a competition. To be stuck here with one can be quite torturous, actually, because you really got to entertain yourself, where usually you get a lot of entertainment just by riding all your other horses. So it's I think it's easier going in the morning, and sometimes pacing around and getting nervous all day is a little bit harder to get going in the afternoon when you compete.
If you see Boyd in the trade fair kind of walking back and forth, make sure you wish him good luck, or maybe give him something to do, I guess, on Saturday. And Caitlin, what about you?
I Saying the same thing that Boyd said. I try and keep busy. I am going in the morning, which I'm pretty happy about, because if I go in the afternoon, then you sort of spend all day getting nervous, and you watch different things ride different ways, and then you start questioning your plan a bit. So like Boyd said, I think we'll go out and walk the course early and then head to the warm-up, because I go only a couple horses in, and have him there in the warm-up to keep me busy and keep an eye on how things are riding, and off we go.
Was the Rolex Stadium this morning everything you thought it would be?
It was. It's really big in there. I mean, I walked around in there last night, but when you trot in, I had a moment where my mare almost looked up into the stands, and Silva said right before I go in, "Don't you dare let her look up." So, quickly kept her head down and rode the test.
All right, well, there's lots of fans here today. Anyone have a question for Boyd or Caitlin? Come on, come forward. Yep. The question was, do you feel like you benefited from having Boyd as an event trainer and Silva as just a dressage rider?
Yeah.
Or rider trainer?
I definitely have. Like I said before, I'm so lucky. You talk to a lot of other event riders, and they're only able to go see a dressage specialist, once a week, once a month, and we're fortunate enough to have Silva every day. And even when you're not riding or taking lessons from her, you get to watch her school her upper level, Grand Prix and Prix St. George horses every day. So the level of riding is definitely kicked up a notch at our farm, because we're riding in the same ring as her. And then having Boyd, he helps me on all the horses that I jump ride at home, and he's very knowledgeable on the flat from Silva and all his years of experience. So when Silva's not around, I have him to help me on the flat as well.
Anyone else? Yeah. Okay, so the question was, what do you look for when you are looking for a potential 4-star horse?
One that can jump high, one that can gallop. It's got to be sound. And lately, the biggest thing I think is having a horse that's trainable or rideable, and that's one thing that you overlook sometimes when you're looking for a horse. You look for the big movement and then the big jump, and you've got to evaluate. You've got to picture a horse in this stadium full of cheering people, and you're trying to do an extended walk across a diagonal. So having a horse that's a raving lunatic is definitely cross that off your list, because they don't change too much over the years, and your end goal would hopefully be something like this, or a high level competition where there is atmosphere and there is electricity in the ring, and sometimes the rideability is more important than the ability, so keep that in the back of your mind.
Boyd, is there a way that you look for rideability? Like if you're just someone going to try a horse a few times, how do you kind of tell their personality as opposed to their movement? Obviously you can see.
Yeah, it's a hard thing, because if you think about it, say you're buying a horse, you've probably got 30 minutes to evaluate it, and there's a bit of pressure there, because the person selling your horse staring at you, and then your trainer's there, and then your mum's there videoing, and your boyfriend's there talking to the rider's groom, and it's hard to bloody concentrate on what exactly, if you like the horse or not. And one thing I say is what you see on that day is usually what you get. So if it's a hot horse that's jogging when you're asking it for walk, it's always going to jog, If it has 3 rails down when you're trying the show jumping, it's probably going to have 3 rails down. If it changes lead behind in the canter when you're doing dressage, it's probably always going to do that. And try not to get baited into the idea that the person selling it to you is a really ordinary rider and you're going to change it, because you can only improve them, you can't change them.
That was pretty good advice. I don't think I can. I don't think I can top that. I usually, if I'm looking at horses and I think that I like the horse, I end up showing Boyd the video anyway and get the approval from him.
Is there a specific age, if you're looking for a 4-star horse, maybe longer term, that you'd want to get that horse at? Would you prefer it to just be broke or have a little bit of training, or?
I think it depends. It depends on what you're after. It's certainly much harder to find a horse that's going at the 4-star level or at the advanced level or even the intermediate level, because usually if they are for sale and they're available, there's a reason why they are for sale. If they're good and they're going well, generally people aren't selling them. So it's definitely easier to buy a younger horse that hasn't done as much.
Any other questions?
By Irish.
Well, by Irish. Just some advice from the crowd. Yes?
Any advice for young riders?
The question was, any advice for young riders? Riders coming up through the ranks, you mean?
Yeah, like teenagers.
Teenagers? Advice for teenagers?
Yeah, like if you're a young teenager and you want to be a big-time rider, forget going to university or college, because that's the biggest destroyer of professional riders in this country, of a young rider that looks brilliant and then they go to university for like 3 or 4 or 5 years and then they try and come back to it. It never works.
Aaron Sylvester and Lynn Smansky and I actually talked about this morning. They both graduated from college, but there are only a handful of them here who did. I think there's 5 or 6 riders at Rolex who competed and went to college. So the odds are against you a little more, but it is possible for all the moms out there freaking out right now because Boyd just said that.
You buy a hell of a horse when you pay tuition.
That's true. She's on our side.
Any other questions?
I'll just follow up on that. I was sort of half joking, girls. If you want to go to college, you should. But the biggest thing you can do, I reckon, is you got to try and connect with someone that's going to, it's no good, like you got to try and connect with someone that's going to be a brilliant sort of rider or a mentor or someone that you believe in. And sometimes they might not even have a job available, but if you're really, really serious and you want to be a great rider and you think Leslie Law's going to be the best coach for you, then you've got to figure out a way of working for Leslie Law or Buck Davidson or Philip Dutton. And there's, I think there's about 20 riders or trainers. They might not be riding at the 4-star level. They might be just coaches that you've got to pick who the best one is, and then you've got to be able to try and figure out a way of working for them or training with them for a long period of time. And that, I think, if you look at all the successful riders, one of their in their past somehow they've linked up with someone that's helped them along for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and that sort of springboarded them into elitism.
And I think too, along those lines, and you guys would probably agree with me, that those people then give you opportunities you wouldn't otherwise have, like Jenny with Boyd Jenny with Philip and yourself, Boyd, linking with owners and other things, and with you, Caitlin, with the ride on Remington. Talk about that a little bit.
It's a pretty special opportunity that I have on Remington. I was fortunate enough that Boyd, as his former rider, and Dency Javonen, his owner, allowed me the opportunity to sort of be the first leg of his retirement. He'll eventually go to her young granddaughter Camilla and go around the lower levels or intermediate with her, but it's a very special opportunity because he's been all around the world. He's a very famous horse. I'm sure you guys all know him, and he knows a lot, and he's teaching me quite a bit, and it's cool to have Boyd teaching me on him because he knows the horse so well, and it's an upper level horse that I get to ride around.
All right, any other questions? Okay, well, we wish you guys the best of luck this weekend. We look very, very forward to watching you. Caitlin, obviously, you're done with the portion of dressage here, and we will be cheering you guys on all weekend long. So thanks so much for joining us. If you have other questions for our riders tomorrow and the rest of the weekend, be sure to follow us on Twitter and let us know what those are at #RK3DE interview, and we'll be sure to ask those here in the Kentucky Interview Lounge.